invite all of you to learn more about us here in the Northern Virginia Handcrafters Guild and invite you to join us as well. With that, Marie Pasquel.
Thank you. Okay, I've never used one of these microphones, so bear with me. Okay, my name is Marie Pasquel, and I'm very excited to be here, and I want to thank you all for inviting me to share my experience with you about my art journey and my trip and adventure to Ravenna, Italy, where I took a week worth of classes and learned a little bit more about the culture and enjoyed the wine of Italy. I think I'm in his way. Am I in your way?
No, don't worry about the camera. We'll work around you.
Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just tell you a little bit about how my history of art and how I decided to go to Ravenna, Italy. Most people think it's an adventure they may not think about doing, but you'd be surprised how easily you can do it. So in third grade was the first time that a teacher complimented my ability to draw. In seventh grade was the next time I remember about my art. I did a mosaic of a squirrel out of construction paper. This is the one piece of my childhood I saved because looking back I realized I loved mosaics even then before I had even pursued any other art. The next class I took was in my senior year, so there's a lot of gaps between my art. And in my senior year in high school, I learned the grid technique for portioning off pictures and paper, and it helped a lot with being able to do more realistic drawings. It's particularly helpful when you're doing people, because people you have to have so exact, otherwise you now have created somebody else other than who you want to create. Then in college, I went to Virginia Tech, studied sociology and cultural anthropology. Okay. In college, I went to Virginia Tech, studied sociology and cultural anthropology, and I had wanted to study art, but my parents didn't want me to be a starving artist. How's that? Okay. So I did sociology, which I loved, but they heard that I was doing sociology and decided that I had to have a master's if they were going to agree for me to do sociology. So I got a master's in urban affairs. Was not happy, but I ended up with that. So while I was on campus, a professor asked me if I would put two of my drawings into an exhibit on campus, which is the pencil drawing of the golf ball and the nail polish. So then after that, another gap. I got married, had a daughter. So this is about 10 years later. And my daughter was 2 years old. And I remember taking an art class, a watercolor pen and ink with a good friend of mine. And I was very excited to finally do art again. And after the 2 hours of class, I came out of there so relaxed, I felt like I had a massage. So couldn't beat that. Okay. Then in 2008, about 10 years later, again, I decided to go to the Boston University's Center for Digital and Imaging Art in Georgetown, and I got a certificate in digital photography, and I started a business of photography. And I did weddings, events, portraits. I did that for about 5 years, and I felt like my true passion fell with art, not with photography. And so from that point, I decided that I was going to dedicate this year. So I closed my business in 2015 and decided to pursue my art and really go full strong ahead of that. So. After 3 years, about 3 years ago, my aunt, Emilsa, right there, called me and asked me if I'd be interested in taking a week-long class with her in Warrenton, Virginia, of pastels. And I said, I don't know. I don't like the chalky feeling of pastels. But she goes, oh no, I use pencils that are pastel pencils. I said, okay, let's go. So we did. And I realized that at that moment in that class, I was beginning my art journey, because I came out of there loving pastels, something I'd never done before. And from then on, I kept taking classes. I still take classes in Warrenton all year long, except in the summers mostly. I do it like in the school year. And every class I take, I grow, I stretch myself. I choose topics that are beyond my comfort level. The Perugia drawing that's over there, the first one was my first experience with perspective. So that one took me months and months and months. Since I didn't know anything about perspectives, I learned how to do that. And here's an example of the things I've done, a few of the things I've done over the last 3.5 years. Oh, that's my little boy that's now 25. He's actually here. I saw him walk in somewhere. There he is. That's what he looks like now. But he didn't shave to come here. So for the past 3 years, I've been looking to do mosaics, but I wanted to do the ancient style of mosaics. And there was a man at the workhouse I had seen like 4 years ago, I guess, that did kind of like the mosaics of Pompeii. And when I decided it was time to take a class, I went over there, was ready to sign up for the class, and he had moved. So there was nobody that could teach me the ancient mosaic art. So in August of 2016, I decided to start Googling ancient mosaic art because I wanted to take a class in it. There was nobody local that I could find. I thought there's got to be some place around here I can take a class, an intensive class on the ancient way of doing it. And all I could find was the modern technique for mosaics, which are beautiful, but I wanted to do more of the style of Pompeii like I had seen when I had been there in the past. So I started Googling it, and I found this class, the Mosaic Art School in Ravenna. And Ravenna has 1,500-year-old churches, and they have the best in the West Byzantine mosaics. So I decided to move forward, and we had just picked up our daughter from Italy in May of 2016. We're now in August 2016. I'm thinking, how on earth am I going to go again? Because we do still have a daughter in college. So that never stops me to figure out what we're going to do. I found a class in Ravenna, which I used to call Ravenna before I knew how to pronounce it. And it was an affordable price, so I started exploring bargains of ways to make the dream come true. And so I gathered airline points for my husband's card, for my daughter's card while she was overseas. Then I looked at Airbnb and found this super cheap room over in Ravenna that happened to be across the street from the school, as it turns out. And on October 16th, 2 months later, I was on the plane, sitting there, not believing I was on my way to Italy. Okay. I arrived in Ravenna the next day, met by my host, and settled into my room. This is my host, Marissa, and that was her living room area. It was a nice, comfortable, modest home. She was the nicest person you can ever imagine, and we went to dinner almost every night. That is the best way to travel alone, is to go to an Airbnb and stay with somebody in the house, because a native person, you can learn about the city, and in an emergency, you have a contact person, which is really nice. Then, as I mentioned, I love wine. The city decided to do a reception for me and had a big wine festival. So that weekend I arrived. I was very happy. It was really cool. So I walked around the city and I wanted to explore. And one of the things I noticed right away I thought was really interesting are their sidewalks. The design of the sidewalks are made for people to be safe. They're on the sidewalk. The side labeled clearly closest to the building is for walkers, and the other one are for bikers. And I heard in DC they're trying to figure out what to do to keep bikers and walkers safe. This would be a really good idea. So the first day after I explored the wine festival, I went over to the Bastidero Mioniano, excuse my pronunciation, but this, it's hiding from me. Okay. So I was in awe when I saw this. I went into, it was a baptistry in the past, and they think it perhaps was built, one of the the oldest remaining monuments, and they think it might have been built on a Roman bath. And every part of that building, this small, like kind of a round building, was covered in mosaics. The ceilings, the floors. Yes. Okay. Now I'm going to move on to the class. Whoops. Okay, so I arrived on Saturday, so I would not be jet lagged. I thought it would be nice to be able to roam around the city a little bit, get comfortable, go see where my class would be. And then on Monday, my class started. And we met Luciana, which is the teacher, the owner and teacher of the Mosaic Art School. And this is her storefront. And this wall was an example of the ancient mosaics that they did, which I have one of mine is copied from one of those. Okay. So we introduced ourselves to each other when we went. We walked over to her house, which in the bottom part was her studio for us to work in. We introduced each other to each other, and the students. We had about 10 students, and they were from different parts of the world, which I hadn't even thought would happen, which was very interesting. We had from the United States probably about 5 students. We had one from Israel, Malaysia, the Netherlands, Ukraine, and Italy. And the common language was English. Okay. No, this is it. This is it. Okay, and so it was an incredible experience to be surrounded by people of many cultures that shared the love of mosaics. And I met Lydia, which is one of the students, she's not in there, and I found out that there is a school here in North America, and it's the Chicago Mosaic School. It's the only not-for-profit mosaic art school in North America. And so talking with her, and since then I've researched it, and they have some really wonderful workshops and classes. And while we were having our class, they were buzzing around about 2 earthquakes before that bigger one that everybody felt but myself. So I guess I was just too wrapped up with my fun things to even notice. Okay. So these are, now this is how we had our easels set up. And the far left is me working on the bird that I worked on, which I can show you here, except that it might get disconnected. Thank you. Just put it right here. It'll be fine. The second one is the woman from Israel. And we each chose an ancient. They had several papers on the desk, on the table, and they had certain ones chosen that we would be able to complete in that time period we had for the week. So we chose which one we wanted. They were all ancient, either rubbings. The one I chose was actually a rubbing from an original mosaic, and the others were prints with the style, so you could copy it. The next guy is from the Netherlands, and then Lydia is on the right, which was the woman from the Chicago Mosaic Art School. So if you ever go there, you can look for her. She's very nice. Okay, and this is an introduction to my teachers. Luciana is on the left. She is the Italian teacher. She has been involved in many restorations of mosaics, and I'm going to show you one that she was involved in, her and her team that rescued it. Gabriella is the Canadian that lives there, and she is her English translator, along with helping us. And there's, like I said, 5 assistants to help 10 students. You can never be without help there. They run around getting your marble or glass that you need, and you're always getting the help you need, and they really move things along so you can stay on task. Okay, so I'm going to explain to you what the different things are. Tesserae are the actual pieces that you're going to use to make a mosaic. It's those little rectangular pieces. The one on the left, which is a small t, are made of glass and other metals, but this is Venetian glass that's made in Venice. And then on the right are limestone marble, which from what I understood is limestone, marble, granite. Those are the different levels of hardness. And so the marble is usually, okay, so this is how they store the small t. So you can see the variations of colors. But what I learned also is you really need only light, medium, and dark to really make a difference in a mosaic. And you need to be able to, because if your lights are dim, like if you're in a church or something, there's no point to use any variation of gradation because you're not going to see it from a distance. This is how we stored, they stored the limestone marble, and they had the colors on the outside. Okay, so now this is where it's the Ravenna method was the first method we used for making the mosaic. This one involves, I think, around 8 steps. So the first thing is we had to learn how to use the hammer and the hardy. The hammer is obviously that hammer, and the hardy is that like blade. And it sits in a piece of wood, and you can take it out to sharpen it. So every single piece that's used in here, I had to hand cut to the shape I needed. Okay, so this is how we began. It's the double reverse method where there's the original rubbing. Then it is traced that direction, then flipped over, and then you have to trace the reverse side with a water-soluble pen, because what you're going to do is eventually put that side on a damp surface of lime putty so you have a design to work with. It's more of a guide because as you work with the putty, it pushes and moves. So. So if you look up where the map is, there's the lime putty, that white kind of clay looking on the board. That is what your base is going to be initially, and that's where you're going to put the design on, and you're going to start putting in your mosaic pieces. So then you rub it on, and it will be there for you. This was my workstation, so what I'm putting the tesserae pieces on, and I worked with the marble because I love the natural look, is that lime putty underneath, and these are all my pieces, and there's all the cuttings that I did. And there's me. So the next step is when you finished the whole design, then we went and we put a cheesecloth on it. And what you do is you lay the cheesecloth on top, and then you have to put a water-soluble glue. The best glue they decided for this was rabbit glue, which I was really grossed out at first when I heard rabbit glue, because I love animals. But it's the best one. So it's the strongest, and it's water-soluble, so I had to adapt with the idea. So then you let the gauze dry on top of it. Then from the board, you chip. You basically like spatula off the lime putty, and then you work on the reverse side, which is the second picture down, and pick out that lime putty, because that's just a temporary base. So from there, once it's all cleaned out, you're going to put the cement on the back of it, and then you put some cement inside the frames, and then you're going to put an additional like another kind of sand cement around it to give it a complete finish. The gauze, the cheesecloth is still on it at this point, so then it has to dry completely. Then while that's drying, because cement takes a little bit of time, the next day we did modern mosaics, and this was a whole different, it's right there. This was a whole different method, which, you know, initially sounded like it would be nice because it, you know, it's by 8 steps. You have maybe 2 steps for this one. Okay, and what this one is, they put half of the frame with cement. They then again transfer the pattern onto that half. You work on that, but you have to get it done within 3 hours because the cement dries. Then they go back and they will then fill in the other part and put the design, and then you complete the work. I don't like to work in pieces like that because I like to see the entire thing happening, and I don't like to rush. That's something I really, really relax with my art. So for me, it's just too quick. I'd rather the 8-step forever Ravenna method. And then that was the finish was that one. So then the next step is that you need to take off the gauze. And that's after all the cement is completely dried. Okay, so what they do is they pour warm water on the gauze, and you peel it up gently, and then you go through and you scrub it to get any extra putty off or anything else that's showing on that side. Then they spray it down with a hose so the whole thing gets wet. And at this point, the cement isn't 100% dry. It's dried on the outside, so it's safe, but you still have to let it cure for actually a few days. And then there's the finished project, and these are 3 other students' projects, which everyone did a really good job. The teachers know how to choose projects that you can actually be successful with, which is really nice. Because all of us were like, well, I don't know if we like those designs, you know. Well, they know what they're doing. And then the final step is, like in a case like this, that you have that dark blue smalty there, they take blue, I think it's tempera paint, and paint over it so all that white is covered up. And actually you can just wipe it off with the smalty, so you don't have to be really neat with it, which is nice. So then, after we were done with this wonderful class, the teacher had arranged for us to go on a tour of Ravenna, and they had chosen like 5 different places for us to go to. And this is a church that I don't think I've seen anything more beautiful in my life than this, because it is mosaics all over the place, in arches, on the altar, on the floors, everywhere you can imagine. And this is the early Christian and Byzantine mosaics of Ravenna. These are some of the floors that you can walk on, which to me, I always think that's the most amazing thing, is to be able to walk on art. In Lisbon, Portugal, all the sidewalks are mosaics. So it's just amazing. Then here is another piece of the floor. And what I learned too is for the restoration of mosaics now, they do not put in the pieces of what's missing. They either leave it with cement or they might put the white in, because a lot of the restoration was being poorly done, and it was worse than just leaving it blank. Here's some more floors. I hope one day to do all these type of things. Okay, here's the Mausoleum of Galla Placida. This was my favorite, I guess my favorite mausoleum, my favorite place to go. This one was, they had mosaics all over the place, more so you think even than the church. And, but the environment in there is so delicate because it's very small that they have a sign saying for microclimatic reasons, the stay inside the Mausoleum of Gala Placidia is limited to 5 minutes. So we had 5 minutes to take pictures, but I think it was more at the Italian 5 minutes because it seemed a little longer than 5 minutes. And then these are more pictures in there. As you can see that every piece of the wall has different mosaics. It's not like just one. And that one in the middle upper is a very typical image from Ravenna. You'll see that on a lot of the tourist bags and things that they sell for tourism. Okay, this is La Domos dei Tappeti di Pietra. This was the last thing we saw on our tour of the city. And I could not believe it was the last thing, because what we did was we went through a church and then came out and went down. And these are ruins that were discovered when they were building a parking lot. They thought they were going to do a layered parking lot, and all of a sudden they found these right here, this is what received me walking in there. I couldn't believe it. Was huge. It was amazing. And so much detail. And on the right, you can see some people on the ground. That's very unusual for mosaics because they don't like to walk on people. Usually those are the wall mosaics. But this one back here is the earliest image they believe of Jesus as a child. And I asked why they thought that, and it has something to do with what he's depicted with. But Luciana and her team were involved in restoring this one. And as you can see, all the blank spaces are because those tesserae, smalti, and all those were not with it. And instead of repairing it, they left it like that because they want it to be done in a very accurate way. Okay, and then I got a certificate when I was done, which I thought was really exciting. Okay, so when I came back to the States, I thought, okay, well, I brought my Hardy and hammer from Italy. Thought I was all ready. I thought that would be the most difficult part. No, it was not. When I started gathering all my stuff together, I realized that one of the difficult parts was getting that piece of wood to be the right height to put that Hardy in. So I have a short one because I haven't found the tall one yet, but I'm working on it. And then I started gathering. There were a lot of little things I had to get, like the rabbit glue. As it turned out, it came from Italy, so I should have gotten it there. This table started my enthusiasm because I think every single artist helps me grow as a person, as an artist, and I hope to keep on growing. I think I want to do some workshops in Chicago, particularly how to make the frames for my mosaics, because I can't find that either. So some of the most basic things that you think would be easy to find are not that easy. So this month, I'm still taking classes with Patty. I'm doing a drawing from live models, which I've never done before, and it's so outside my comfort zone, but I figure if I don't go outside my comfort zone, I won't grow. And I know a lot of artists feel like they sometimes get stuck, and I think the best way is to get past that is to go and take classes. Plan a trip to Italy or plan a trip to wherever they have your art specialty in. And, initially it seems like it's impossible because, oh my gosh, it's in another country. And right now it might be a little scary, depending on what country you go to. But there's always a way. If you really want to do it, there's always a way. You can find very economical flights if you put alerts in on, Travelocity or any of those websites. The class over there was far cheaper than any class I could take here. And then you can eat, as modest as you want or as extravagant as you want. So there's no limiting what you can do. You just have to be willing to take that chance and go forward and try new things. And even if you stay in the States, look for those classes. Because when you work with other people that love what you do, you're going to grow. So that's it. Thank you so much. If anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Yes.
Can you get the granite marble here?
I did go to a granite producer, and he was very nice. He let me dig through his trash, so I got a few, but they did not have the colors I need, so I'm still pursuing that. Yeah, and they're big pieces. They have that machine that I showed you, Gabriella was sitting in front of, the Canadian translator. That is a machine that will cut bigger pieces of granite into smaller, more manageable sizes, but you know, it's a $1,000 machine. And I don't even know if we can get that here, since we can't get a piece of wood here, so.
I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned the smelting.
Uh-huh.
The smelting is the glass. Do you mix the glass with the stone?
You can, yes.
Even in the old one?
No. Well, yes, because, I mean, a lot of the old ones are done with both, or just with smalty. And I did, but there was a shop that I did bring back some smalty of the Byzantine colored smalty, which is really hard to get here. You can get, they have very good smalty from Mexico. There's a company that deals with it. And there's De Mosaico that also, I think they may get it from Italy. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. That was one of my inspirations. The National Shrine in Washington is just beautiful. I want to go around touching them all, but it says don't touch.
Is that the style that you look at, modern style or the ancient style?
I prefer the ancient style for now.
Yeah, the National Shrine.
Oh, you know, probably modern, probably, because you can take ancient styles and make them modern too, depending on how. Like this is actually considered a modern style, even though I copied ancient flip-flops. You know, I made changes and stuff. Any other questions? Yes?
Just out of curiosity, how long does the putty, the base putty, stay pliable?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. She wants to know how long the putty stays pliable. You can't get the lime putty here in the States, another problem, but you can use potter's clay. And so what you do is when you're done for the day, you spritz it with water and you cover it with saran wrap to keep it moist. So as long as you keep it moist, it'll be workable.
So you could reuse it?
I think it would be difficult to reuse it.
That would be
I think, yeah. Yes, back there?
I have a question about the difference between the ancient and the modern. What is the advantage of the ancient over the modern? I mean, why would you go through 8 steps and you can just do it in 2 or something?
I think it depends on how you visualize things. I like to see the whole picture. I don't like to be rushed. And with the ancient style, I mean, you could do modern mosaics on the ancient style, the method, but I like to see the whole thing, and I like to take my time. The other cement just dries really quickly, and probably, you know, somebody that does modern mosaics as like their art could probably enlighten me as to how I could do that in a different way that would make it easier.
Enlighten you in what way?
And
How to make what you're doing?
yeah, because they used a cement that dried in 3 hours, and I can't imagine, you know, and they even say to work on smaller pieces. You know, I like to see the whole thing. So this is my first ever experience with mosaics at all. So there's so much for me to learn still.
You did very well.
Thank you.
Did really well. Bravissima.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Good job.
So when
Thank
you
you.
start your own designs, you go through the sketches first and then divide it by squares afterwards. Is that how you do it?
Well,
Your own designs. Or you just
your own design.
oh, your own design. Let's see how they did it. Well, I had a picture of these ancient sandals. I'm trying to think what other people did. But I know that one of the assistants took those and took them back. Now, in the Chicago Mosaic School, if I understand their class, there's a fundamentals class that can teach you how to take photographs and turn them to mosaic pieces. So I'd really like to take that, because I just think I could just, you know, really expand my ability by doing that. But I'm not real sure. Yes?
When you're working with the ancient method,
Uh-huh.
do they ever do anything three-dimensional?
Yeah, well, I did see, You know, the ancient method, I'm not sure, but I did see a lot of three-dimensional in mosaics. So I'm not sure what technique that is, but I would imagine that would be more modern. But I'm not sure about that.
Okay, well, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
If you hang around, I have some source information.